This illustration deals with ampacity in accordance with 320.80, and so we're dealing with AC cable here. The purpose of change was to provide a new sentence, and this new sentence has been added to clarify multiple cables and contact with thermal insulation create the potential for heating beyond the capabilities of the cables. This revision will require spacing between these cables or derating of the conductor ampacity. Now, the derating rules we find in 330.80C for the same rule concerning MC cable, and 338.10B for item 2 for service entrance cable, SC or USC. So what they're saying, we have to be careful that we don't overheat these cables. So if you review the illustration to the left, you notice we have framing members, and we have these AC cables that are totally enclosed by insulation. So there's a requirement that the spacing between them would have enough spacing for them to dissipate their heat, and the code doesn't tell you should that be an inch and a half or whatever. It's up to the authority having jurisdiction to look at these cables, and then the designer make sure, due to the loading of these cables and the amount of amps that are on these cables, would that be a problem? And then go forward as necessary. Now, first, let's look at the information below the arrangement AC cables, and it says cables with current carrying conductors are installed without maintaining the space between cables. Proper spacing may be the diameter of the cable. If the authority having jurisdiction says, well, just give me a separation that's the diameter of the cable, and it can dissipate its heat, but you're not to bundle them together more than 2 foot without applying this rule in 320.80. Now, you notice with the call out pointing toward the conductors inside the AC cable, notice each cable has 2 or more current carrying conductors in accordance with 320.80. So table 310.15C1 has to be applied here based upon 4 to 6 current carrying conductors, 80%, say 7 to 9 conductors, 70%, and if you had 10, say, you'd be around 50% that you derate. So it's either 80%, 70%, and once you put more than 9, you got to be able to afford that, and capacity-wise, the amount of amps the conductor would actually be loaded to. Now, for the next note, not a note, but a call out, it says apply the adjustment factors for each conductor in accordance with 310.15C1, and I think we just explained that. And then we have conductors that are in the cable. Now, at this time, notice the conductors that we in the illustration to the left, showing them framing members, say on say 16-foot centers, 24-inch centers, whatever the building code allows, or the city or state or county. Then notice wood framing is fire or draft stop using thermal insulation, chalk, or ceiling foam per 320.80. Now, note 1 in the blue, it says user can derate using the 90-degree C rating back to a usable 60-degree C rating, and that's explained in 320.80, 334.80, and 110.14C. Will give us this information also for terminals and terminations and things of that nature. Now, note 2, the provisions of 310.14A is an Apple II. Exception is the 10% rule, and it does not apply. So notice the routing where you would have 100 foot and you take 10% of 100 and you're allowed to route 10 feet through a greater temperature than 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That does not apply here. So keep that in mind, and then review very carefully 310.15, C as in car, exception to 4, and then look at 310.15C1 for your adjustment factors. And then I think you'll have a handle on this. And it's very important now when you're routing this AC cable to review 320.80, because that deals with loading the cable based upon how many current carrying conductors you have within the cable, and then allowing you and permitting you, if you go by this section, to derate from the 90-degree ampacity from table 310.16 back to a usable 60 degree C ampacity.